Hello, my name's Tracy from Flossy Fluke. I'm going to show you how to make your little tree decoration today, and thank you for taking one of my kits from the library. That's really nice to see that other people are out crafting at Christmas. So if you first of all want to check your little pack and your instructions that are inside it, you should have a list of everything that you need. So you should have your rings, your circles of fabric, 8 of them, needle, thread, a disc of wood, a cotton ball and a small ribbon bow. But you will also need some of your own things, some small sharp scissors, the sharper the better, possibly spare thread. It doesn't have to be green, but if you have a bit of spare thread, just in case you get in a tangle and you have to snip away and then you're left without any. And then some glue, either some school glue, or if you have one, a glue gun. You might be able to borrow one just for an afternoon. So your first thing to do is to lay out all of your discs and lay out all of your kit and check that you've got everything. And I would like you to lay out your discs in this order. So you have 2 of each size, 2 of those, and then 2 of these small ones. So lay them out on the counter so that you work through them in the right order, because I've laid them out in this arrangement because you get a nice contrast of dark and light and patterned and more plain to give the tree a little bit more pop. And the first thing you're going to do is thread your needle. So to do that, thread it through and join up the 2 ends so that they're equal. It's going to be hard for you to see there, but if you put the 2 ends equal like this, and the rest is on the needle, then go to the very end of your thread and with your fingers and thumbs make a tiny loop so that you can pass the needle through the loop. And when you've gone all the way through, just gently pull, you've got a knot. You can actually repeat that on the same spot with the knot in the middle, looping, passing the needle through, gently pulling, and then you've got a nice chunky knot on the end of your thread. So the first thing you're going to do is take this with the snowflake pattern on, and you'll see there's a right side and a wrong side. So put the fabric with the wrong side towards you, in other words the paler side, and just with your fingers and thumb just roll over the top a tiny bit. I've rolled it over by maybe 1/2 centimetre. You might be able to see that better from the photographs that I've sent for this activity. And with your thread you're going to just go through the fabric up and down and pull the thread gently as you go. So we're going to go by bending over the edge just about 1/2 centimetre, needle down, needle up. You can even do a few at once if you like, pulling the thread through. This is a running stitch. Basically it just means up and down all the way around the edge. So down and up. You can do it in 2 different movements if you like, one down and one back up. That's okay. But if you're like me and you're a little bit impatient sometimes, as long as you fold it over the edge, you can go down and up and down and up and do a few stitches in one go. Now you might find that your thread is kind of bumping up a little bit. Just be gentle with it and gently pull it through. And if you find you have a little knot, just tease it out. Don't get impatient too much and you'll find that it should come. So just a little gentle tug is all it really needs. So this is going to go all the way around the edge of the circle by turning a little tiny bit as you go. In fact, if you turn it and press it with your thumb a little bit, it will actually hold down the fabric. And look, I've got in a right old tangle here. You'd think I'd know better by now, wouldn't you? There we are. It's because I'm trying to hurry for you. As you're doing this, you will find that the fabric is puckering up a little bit. It's kind of becoming, what would the word be? Ruched. So don't worry about that because we're going to need it to do that anyway. So it's doing that quite naturally. So can you see that by folding and turning as you go, you can actually do quite a few stitches in one go. Pull gently and you'll be going all the way around the edge. Now this is your first circle, and by the time you've done 8 of these you're going to be a pro. So if this one needs a little bit more attention to start with, that's fine. The thing we're making here, some people call it a Suffolk puff. I presume that might be the English name for it, with the word Suffolk in, I don't know. Some people call it a yo-yo. I think that might be maybe more of an American term. I don't know. And once you've learned how to do these, there are a few different things that you can do with them, which I will show you later on. Now, I've nearly come to the end of this, and when I'm at the end, I have to secure it so that the stitching doesn't just all become unravelled, which I'm going to show you just now. If you think about it, it's turning inside out. Look, can you see? We've got the outside of the fabric showing. So just before we get to the very end, the place we started from, we'll take a minute to pop it the right way around. So don't pull it too tight at the end, because you need to be able to put your fingers in and wiggle it inside out. This will get harder as you work your way down the sizes of the circles. So getting good at these things now is a plan. So can you see it's already kind of quite ruched up? And gently pull the thread. Don't pull from the needle like this. You're more likely to break the thread. Pull from close to the circle. Pull from down here. You're less likely to snap it off and then have to start again. So I've pulled it gently, and with my fingers and thumb, I'm just teasing the edges out a little bit to get that proper circular shape. And this is what we're aiming for. That's one side. The other side's quite flat, but this is the side that's interesting. So to finish this off, we've pulled it near to the fabric, not from the needle, and just pass your needle through a couple of those pleats. It's a bit tough. Pass your needle through, and then you can do that in a couple of places, and that will secure it. Now I've got in a knot again. Don't mind me. So a couple of places, and then what you're going to do is you're going to snip off the thread, but high up. So you're going to snip it off where your needle is. So I've done a few stitches there, just going through some of the pleats, and then I'm going to cut the thread nicely at the top and leave that on one side. Now the second one, I've started this one, is the gingham one, and again you'll see that you're starting to bunch up the fabric as you go along, which is great. This time at least you know you don't need to flatten it out, keep pausing to straighten it, because ruched is what we want. The gingham fabric, it's a little bit harder to tell which is the front and the back, so I say go with the flow, then it doesn't really matter. If you can't tell, nobody else will be able to tell either. Pull the needle through at the end. Can you see I've gone all the way around? I started this one earlier so that, oh, I sound like a Blue Peter presenter. Just to be able to show you. But we do want it the other way around so that we can't see the rough edge, the turnover. So poke it through a little bit with your fingers before you start to close up the puff. Like this. So this one and the next ones are a little bit different from the first one, which is why I wanted to show you. So when you concertina it up a little bit like this and tease out the circle, this time we're going to sew through some of the pleats to close it up a tiny bit, but this time probably spend a tiny bit longer on closing it up a little bit more. It doesn't have to be completely closed. We want to keep that puffiness about it, but going through maybe just a couple more times than you did for the first one. And the reason for that is that when you've done that a few times, you will be able to cut off the thread altogether, close to the puff. So not up here like last time, but down here. Make sure you don't snip the fabric down there, so that we've got a puff like this. So far we've got one that's sewn up, the first one, but with the thread left. And this time we've got it closed up. And we do the same for quite a few more of the circles. So we've got the dark one with this left, and then we've got all these other ones that I've done. And we try to keep them in the same order. You can keep looking back at the photograph if you like. You see the little small ones are getting really small. So leave those on one side. And next you'd be ready for your last puff. So the last puff is a dark green with stars on. And I've started making that one here. So the first one was different, the middle ones are all the same, and the last one is different. And the reason this is different is that I'd like you to take your cotton wool ball. The cotton wool ball is to give the last puff a bit more rise, but I think it's a bit too big as it is, so I would just unroll a little bit of it to make it a little bit smaller and possibly softer, a bit softer like that. And try it when you've gone halfway round about. Try it inside your circle. So for this last part of the activity, I just sewed all the way back down through my puffs to the bottom and put a few good strong stitches in the bottom. So this last part of the activity, if you're doing it with a child or a younger person, you might well need to help, or you certainly might need some proper supervision at this stage. So I put a good dollop of glue onto my disc. I used a glue gun. If you have borrowed one, you might need to be extra careful because the glue gets very, very hot and it's easy to burn your fingers or blister your fingers if it goes on your fingers. So if you've borrowed a glue gun, make sure that you are very careful. A good dollop of glue on here, and then I simply pressed the bottom puffs down onto the wood, and then we have the little tree ready like this. So a couple of ideas for you. One is to take a little tag, make one, or you might have one in the house already. You could write on a message or the person's name for this table setting, as I think I'm going to do. And I just put the little tag underneath the tree like this at the place setting. Another idea for you is that in this one that I made, I simply got an empty jar and put in a string of fairy lights that are battery operated. Can you see? I popped them in the jar, and then this tree looks quite cute sitting on the top. Or you could even glue it on more permanently and perhaps fill the jar again with sweets or little bits of jewellery or hair bubbles or something like that. And another idea that I have for you is, because you can do this with any fabric. You can use any colours of fabric. You can use old shirts. You could use any scraps or old handkerchiefs or all sorts of things that you might have around the house. Nothing too thick, because obviously it'd be harder to get it to draw up the fabric afterwards. But here I've done, using the same sorts of fabrics for this one, I've just made one big one and one smaller one, put one on top of the other, sewn through with a button, a few ribbons hanging down, and I sewed on a brooch attachment on the back, or you could use a safety pin if you sew it on really well. And there I've got a brooch which is quite big but looks nice on a winter coat. So I hope you've got a few ideas there for things to do, and I hope you enjoy making these Suffolk puff trees, and I hope you might go on and make some more things over Christmas. And thank you very much for taking one of my kits and participating. Bye bye.